my great-grandmother, being quite a Valkyrie, sort of pronounced there as she was giving birth, if this child is to survive, his name will be Víkingur.
Hello, I'm Paavo Järvi, music director of the Tonhalle Orchestra Zürich. Welcome to Tram for Two, a series where I take my guests on a tram ride through Zurich. Welcome to Tram for Two. Today we have a very special guest, a great Icelandic pianist, Víkingur Ólafsson. Welcome.
Thank you, Paavo. Great to be here.
So tell me about one thing I've been thinking yesterday in preparation of our talk about the choices of repertoire. How do you choose the pieces that you play? Do you choose them because you simply like it and you just want to play it, or you have a strategy? Because I look how interestingly you combine things, and is it a coincidence or is it a clear thought?
It's something that comes with the luxury of mid-career, when you actually have the choice of saying no to everything you don't want to do. That certainly wasn't the case for me until maybe 5 years ago. So in my life, in terms of piano and orchestra, piano concertos, I've actually performed about 50 different piano concertos. Right. Many of them I would never play again. Pieces I don't particularly love playing, like Rhapsody in Blue, where I don't feel like myself completely, and quite a few other ventures. But these days, I'm thinking with the luxury of saying no. I have the option of thinking a bit more in chapters and trying to understand my own life in chapters. I think that idea of really being specific with repertoire and programs and what I want to bring to the audience comes a little bit from having run my own tiny little music festival back in Iceland. And before I had the kind of international career that I have today. It's called Reykjavik Midsummer Music. And there I really got fascinated with the sort of impact of context that music making has. I would program crazy things. I would have Gesualdo with Richard Strauss with Giorgio Ligeti in one program, for instance. That was a typical program for me.
What's a wonderful thing about festivals, because you don't need to feel somehow like you have something necessarily have to make formal sense.
Yes.
What I love about my festival is also that I put things that on the paper totally don't fit together, because I just want to, and I think intuitively that works.
Yeah,
and it does often.
It's called poetry.
Yeah,
the instinct.
Yes.
And I think we need more of that actually. And so I'm always trying to work against slightly the obvious.
But for example, new music.
Yeah. You're famous for being associated with some of the really great composers of today, like for example, John Adams.
Yeah.
And we are doing a world premiere or close to one of the co-commissions of his. Which concerto is it? Is it fourth?
It's actually the fourth concerto of John. Yeah, After the Fall, it's called.
Right, After the Fall. And so tell me about how you connect with the composers and why these composers. And how do you choose?
Just based on instinct and taste, honestly. But I've always had these two sides of myself: the romantic and the kind of piano virtuoso in the old sense, playing Rachmaninoff and Brahms and whatever. But then also the kind of modern music side of the unexpected and the unknown territory. And that is because I had parents who were, my mother was a piano teacher, very much Chopin and Schubert and all that. And then my father, who is an architect and a composer. And so my father, from the age of when I was 12, 13, 14, he would really throw at me stuff like Luciano Berio, John Adams, György Kurtág, Thomas Adès, when Adès was still just very young. That has a very good taste. So he would just basically throw at me like the best stuff out there. And he was sometimes doing radio programs, basically for charity, to bring this music to the Icelandic audience.
How interesting.
Really. And so he brought the music of Kurtág in a way to Iceland for the very first time by doing a radio program about him in the 90s. So my mom on the one side always wanting me to be Paulini, kind of a heroic pianist, right?
Yes.
And my father, who was like, Tchaikovsky, why play Tchaikovsky when you could be playing Hans Werner Henze?
It's good that you have both, because that perfectly complements and in a way makes you incredibly interesting an interesting artist in our musical firmament, because you have both sides. There are people who are wonderful musicians, but very much specializing in romantic repertoire.
Well, I want both sides to be friends.
Yeah.
I wanted my parents.
Exactly.
I wanted my parents to agree, and they didn't. You know,
okay.
so my parents would actually argue about things, and I would always be trying to convince dad with my Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff, whatever, and I would try to convince mom with my Ligeti etudes and whatever I was doing. So I
it's
was
basically a family therapy.
yeah, but I'm doing that with my audience as well. So
Right.
I'm trying to like bring them in. I did an album with dedicated to Kurtak, but I put Kurtak in context with Brahms, Schumann,
Right.
Bartók,
that's all fits together
Icelandic
so
folk
well.
songs and whatever else, Mozart, Bach, of course, because that's what I want to do, and that's why I think it's great when you find a way of new music to sit effortlessly
Right.
in a natural context with music history.
First time we played together was in London Proms. We played a Mozart concerto
And the Bach concerto.
and the Bach concerto. That's right. But Mozart, I always find that the younger generation of artists don't play and somehow don't get into the Mozart enough, and I miss it. I'm, to be honest with you, slightly tired of always discussing Rachmaninoff's second concerto and all these big romantic concerti. They're great, of course,
Yeah.
but the Mozart concerto never gets old, and
No.
it's such a fantastic thing to I would like to use this platform to encourage everybody to play more Mozart. But you play Mozart.
I mean, I cannot be without it, actually. But I think you need time to find yourself in Mozart because of how we are brought up with Mozart. Mozart is always put aside by our teachers.
That's right.
He's so perfect and such an angel and so sacred that don't dare touch him,
Right.
And if you're playing him, you're not allowed to exaggerate anything or do anything. But I actually think for the students, you have to be allowed the process of failing as well and doing things too
Right.
much, making mistakes.
And sometimes what's considered too much is actually not too much.
No.
We have this false Viennese kind of polished, understated, carefully manicured Mozart that we
That's a statue of Mozart, but
and
it's
that-
not Mozart the
exactly,
man.
Exactly.
With Mozart, I really think you need to be as spontaneous and as daring as the man himself,
Yeah.
And Mozart I'm 40, he was 30, 6 or 5?
36,
5
I think, yeah.
perhaps when he died? Yeah, 5 years younger than me. He was a young man, he was just a young father doing everything. And when he wrote these piano concertos, he was actually having the late concertos, horrible time in his life. He didn't get any commissions.
Right.
So he wasn't getting the opera commissions that he really wanted, where the real money was. So he actually put on this concert series in Vienna for like 2 or 3 seasons, where he hired the orchestra, he negotiated the contract, he hung up the posters, he sold tickets from his Vienna apartment. He was in a way the first indie musician.
That's right.
He wrote these concertos for money. Sometimes money is the best motivator for great art. But we have to remember that he was just doing it, and he was trying to pay the rent for his family, and he was trying to feed and to be the greatest composer and to have that status. He was doing everything. So there was nothing about the man and his existence that was like create
Yes,
this
exactly.
perfect little coronation concerto.
Yes, yeah.
There's actually a story with my name, Víkingur, so that means Viking. There weren't many Víkingurs, Vikings in Iceland for about 700 years. It was used quite a lot in like the 12th, 13th century, and then not so much for obvious reasons. People don't think about too many nice things when they think about the Vikings. Unfortunately, I'm trying to change that with my piano
You're the good
playing.
Viking.
And for the most part,
Yeah.
you don't want to be my enemy still.
I make the note.
Okay, thank you.
Mental note.
Bring that note with you to the platform.
Yeah.
No, but basically, the story of my name goes back to my grandfather. His name was Víkingur. And he was born on the 2nd of May in 1924 in rather unusual circumstances. He was born out sort of in the middle of nowhere, up in the hills in a snowstorm, 2 months prematurely. So my great-grandmother, being quite a Valkyrie, sort of pronounced there as he was giving birth, if this child is to survive, his name will be Viking Víkingur, which was really, really unusual. So he's basically one of the very first Vikings to come in the 20th century. These days, the name has become very popular, actually. But he did survive, and my name is Víkingur, and I always treasure that story.
It's a good story, and it's a great name.
But in Iceland, we don't really have family names as such. So I'm Víkingur Ólafsson. my father's name is Ólafur Axelsson. My grandfather's name was Axel Ólafsson, whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So your daughters would be Paavo daughter.
Paavo daughter.
Yeah, it sounds very nice.
That's good.
Yes. So in a way, we don't really define ourselves by families.
Would be Paavo's son.
Paavo's son.
Yes.
But the thing is that we don't need family names because everybody knows whose family you're from. It's such a small country and it's been so isolated for
Everybody's
about
related somehow.
Yeah, for 1,000 years we've all been stuck on the same island. So there's actually this unbelievable thing called Íslendingabók, which means the Book of Icelanders, which every Icelander can log onto online. So you basically give your like social security number and some, you know, secret credentials, and then you are in this incredible space where you can type in the name of any other Icelander, alive or past, including everyone who lived on that island.
Oh, cool.
From the year like 970. And you can trace yourself back to everyone. So I can see how, you know, the author of, you know, Snorra-Edda, Snorri Sturluson, the greatest author in the history of Iceland, I can trace myself back some 700 years and see exactly how he is my grandfather, you know, great, you know, however many great grandfathers. And the first thing you really do in Iceland when you find love, when you start dating someone, like when I started to date my now wife, girlfriend back in the day, is to actually log on to this database and just check if we might be cousins, because that might complicate things down the line. Actually, we are related 7 generations back, which is about the average Icelander. So we go back somewhere to, I think, late 18th century, something like that. So about like Mozart, Beethoven's time.
Thank you, Víkingur. It was a great conversation. This was Tram for 2. Subscribe and like. See you next time.
Thank you, Paavo, my favorite tram conductor.
Thank you.